Hi, and welcome to the Saved Gen Z, Canada's newest politics, faith, and culture channel. We are very pleased today to be launching with a very exciting interview. Stay tuned. I'm very pleased today to announce to you that we are launching this channel with an interview with conservative leadership candidate Derek Sloan. Before we get started with our interview, please subscribe if you haven't already and consider hitting that notification bell and give this channel a shout out to be entered into a draw for a cool giveaway that's coming soon. All right. So, Derek, thank you for coming on.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Ellie.
So, how about we start off with you telling us a bit more about who you are and why you are in politics?
Sure. So I'm a lawyer, as you may know, and I have three small kids. And I actually, when I first went to law school, I thought that I would maybe get into you know litigation involving maybe religious liberty or civil liberties or something like that.
Mm.
And I was involved with one of the interveners on the Trinity Western University case in 2015. And it kind of opened my eyes to sort of the realities of the legal system. And basically, when it comes to religious liberty, you can have the same facts on Monday, and the system can say one thing, and then the next week you can have the same facts, and you can get an entirely different ruling. And we saw that with Trinity Western because in 2001 there was a very similar type of case that went to the Supreme Court, and they won that. But then already in 2015 they were getting challenged on that, and it went to the Supreme Court again, and they lost. And so it raises some issues in terms of how successful the law is at protecting religious liberty. And so I just felt that the way forward for me was in politics, and that's what I've been doing ever since, basically.
Yeah, well, you make a good point. I mean, that's why I want to go into law myself. I see sometimes, rulings that are just so, badly made. The one that really angered me was the Quebec City mosque shooter, and he got such a light sentence. And, I'm glad that you've been involved in doing that. So my next question for you is, you were elected in 2019, you are 35, and you have years of political involvement ahead of you. So what made you decide that now was the time to seek the leadership of the party?
Well, I'd always said that I would. When I got into politics, I made it clear that I was getting involved not for my own career, but to advance the conservative movement in Canada as much as I could. And when I saw this leadership race open up, I felt that there needed to be a no compromise conservative candidate in the race. And I thought about it, prayed about it, spoke to some other people, and I just felt that you never know when these contests will come. I mean, it could be that we would get someone, and it would be potentially another 9 or 10 years before a leadership contest. So I felt that now was the time, and I'm glad I made that decision, regardless of how this turns out.
Well, yeah, for sure. You mentioned praying there, and that leads into my next question. So you're obviously a faithful Christian, and you're a part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So how does your faith help you in your daily political life?
Well, I feel that as a Christian, I feel that God has a plan for each of us, and I believe that for those who are willing to stand strong on principle and not compromise, that God will honor those decisions. And I encourage anybody watching this video to take God at His word, and really stand out and do what you think God is calling you to do. And God will always fill in the gaps if you make a mistake, or if you're not quite certain which way you should go. But standing up and taking risks, and not compromising on basic values is a recipe for success. And God will bless you if you decide to do it, to lead your life that way.
No, absolutely. It says in the Bible, that, to be a good Christian Christ, you will be persecuted. It's really about, being there for God. And truly myself also as a Christian, it really is something I circle to do every day, is when I wake up, as I'm here to serve God and his plan for my life. And I'm glad that we have people in politics who think the same. So I now want to turn to issues which I know are important for young Canadians. The first one is free speech, which is the founding principle of our democracy. And it is under threat because of political correctness. What would you do to protect and promote free speech in Canada?
So we've come up with a few different ideas that are part of my campaign, and I agree with you. I think this is a very serious issue, and there's two sides of this. One is sort of the legal side with restrictions. Another is kind of a cultural political correctness. We see this on social media sites where they're banning people for saying things that aren't illegal. They just don't like them, and I think that that's a problem. So some of the things that I've highlighted in my platform. So for universities that do not promote a very strict code of free speech and freedom of inquiry, they will have their federal funding withheld. So to be able to receive federal funding, they're going to have to allow, pro-life groups. They're going to have to allow different people, let's say like Jordan Peterson, people of that nature, from being able to come at the invitation of different groups on campus. We can't have this cancel culture being, promoted by our institutions of higher learning. So that's sort of one aspect of things. Another aspect, when it comes to social media, we are seeing increasing evidence of banning and what's known as shadow banning, where they basically either outright ban things that are, conservative or controversial, or they shadow ban it, where, they make it harder for you to reach your intended audience by not giving you the same exposure in their search algorithms and stuff like that. So this is something that I want to address through a law. And it would be something along the lines of, if you're running a social media platform that is open essentially to all Canadians, so whether it be Facebook or YouTube is not a platform for leftist Canadians. It is a platform for all Canadians. It's not the YouTube Christian Association. It is YouTube for all Canadians. So for these major social media outlets, our law is basically going to be, unless someone is breaking a law of Canada, you cannot ban a video. So, we have obscenity laws. We have, other types of laws that would limit, certain forms of expression, right? Like, if someone is, promoting terrorism or violence or something like that, obviously that's against the law of Canada, so that can be banned. But if someone has, for example, right now, there's all kinds of videos that are promoting different theories concerning the coronavirus, for instance, and they're getting pulled. Well, there's no reason why, someone promoting an idea about the origin of the coronavirus or something like that should be banned from Facebook or from YouTube. So this is something that's very important, and we're going to have a law that deals with that, and I think that's something that's important. There's other issues too. We have laws like C-16, which have some very serious free speech implications, and I have committed to repealing C-16 for those reasons and others. So that's a pretty bold free speech platform, and there's always more that can be done, but that's where we're at right now with that.
Very good. Now, you brought up social media censorship, and that is such a big issue. That was actually supposed to be my next question, but you've answered it already. Okay. That, people who are conservative are being banned for being conservative. And when you look them up, those have not been banned yet. You cannot find them on Google unless you go a few pages back. And, I find that appalling for democracy. However, people on the left will claim that Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter are private companies, so they can do what they want. So what do you say to people who say that shadow banning should be allowed because Facebook, Twitter, they're private companies?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm familiar with that argument, and often, but not always, it's promoted by people that don't believe in free speech, anyways. So, I mean, they like to, they're in favor of it when it suits them, but they're not in favor of it when it doesn't. Here's the thing. Yeah, sure, it's they're a private company, but listen, Canada can tell private companies how they need to operate. If you're a gas station and you don't put the right signage on your pumps, yeah, you're a private company. Yeah, it's a free country, but you're not going to be selling gas. So we decide under what principles a company can operate in Canada. And here's the thing: these companies are so important to information, and information is the lifeblood of a free and open society. And if you're not going to play fair with the information that you're sharing when you're on a large global scale like that, you're not going to do that in Canada. And these companies will toe the line if we put those rules in place. And you know what? We'll hopefully get other countries on board as well to promote this type of law. But it's very important that social media companies are not you know, uh, brainwashing people in the sense of only giving them certain information and preventing them from seeing others. That's not the type of thing that promotes free and open societies.
Absolutely. And you made a good point there about the people who say private companies. To me, some of those people are people who are socialists. So how can you use that for that's not very genuine argument. So I want to move now to another topic. So about 100,000 babies are aborted every year in Canada. How does your pro-life beliefs impact your work as an MP and now as a leadership candidate for the Conservative Party?
Well, I think that when it comes to something like an abortion, and Canada has no laws whatsoever in regard to abortion, it's incumbent upon MPs to raise real issues. I mean, this is a real issue that impacts real people in Canada. And just because people don't want to talk about it, just because people are uncomfortable talking about it, I mean, the very same rhetoric was at one time applied to slavery. There were many people who were not really in favor of slavery, but it was kind of like, oh, it's been ingrained for so long, there's no way we're going to change it. Why don't we worry about something else? Why do we keep having to bring this up? It's just uncomfortable. And you know what? It's incumbent upon MPs to ask tough questions and to deal with difficult issues. That's what we're there for. So if we can't do that, no one else will do it for us.
Very true, very true. So let's talk about drugs now. You've said that you would raise the minimum age to purchase cannabis to 25. However, there is a bigger elephant in the room when it comes to youth, and that is vaping. Vaping rates in teens have doubled in the last 2 years, and tobacco companies could not be happier. What would you do to combat the teen vaping epidemic?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a room for our public health authorities to be doing more advertising and more, public health awareness campaigns. By Trudeau bringing in, legalizing marijuana and making vaping normal, it's opened the doors to, people kind of assume, oh, well, vaping's healthy. Vaping's okay. That's something that I can do. And they're vaping tobacco, they're vaping marijuana, they're vaping other products. But, I think when it comes to marijuana, I'm actually in favor of research on marijuana for medicinal purposes. I think there's some valid medicinal reasons to use it. But what I think we've gotten away from is the idea that, look, for healthy people to be using drugs on a daily basis, there's health concerns for that. A drug like Tylenol is approved. It's non-prescription. You can buy as much as you want of it from your local Shoppers Drug Mart. But if you take Tylenol, if you take the max dose every day, in a very short period of time, you are going to have liver issues. And so the point is that um, you know, drugs ought to be used for a purpose. And for people who are healthy and they just kind of want to escape reality and these types of things, I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't think that Justin Trudeau and his team have properly advertised the health consequences of you know, the use of marijuana. And you know what? If you're having severe pain issues and you can use marijuana instead of opioids, by all means you should do that. But I think the idea now that anybody and everybody should be using marijuana all the time for any reason, it's not warranted, and it's not wise in my view.
Yes, and especially marijuana. I've seen what marijuana does to people my age. It makes them slobs. They cannot do their work anymore. They're always tired. They're always lazy. It's really a harmful drug. And I myself am not for legalization. I support decriminalization. But it really, you know, think there really has to be more out there, for vaping and marijuana, because people think that they're light drugs. Oh, it's just weed, bro. But it's more than that, and it really impacts people. And so I really agree with what you said there. So I now want to talk about your comments about Dr. Theresa Tam's loyalty to Canada. Did you expect people to react the way they did when you put out your statement?
No, it actually, the media attention sort of caught us by surprise. And I'm not sure if, I mean, the media is always looking for controversy, no question. So I don't know why they picked up on that. I put out some other things that are controversial as well, but it did catch me by surprise, the amount of attention that received.
Yeah, were you especially surprised by your conservative colleagues?
Yeah, I was actually. I was surprised by that, and there's different reasons, I suppose, for taking those views, but or being upset by the comments I made. But you know, and I think a lot of it is just, there's some people that feel, well, if you get nailed by the media, whether rightly or wrongly, that's your problem, and you need to fix it. That's sort of some people's view. And I believe that there's going to be times as conservatives where we get nailed by the media unfairly, and we shouldn't backtrack. We should stand our ground, and that's the type of leadership that I would like to see in the party, and that's the type of leadership I'm trying to emulate in this race.
Yeah. Following that statement, Michelle Rempel, she went on a Twitter rampage to condemn you, and she used very strong language in her tweets. What do you have to say to MPs who don't think that you or your views belong in the party?
Well, I mean, on the subject of Dr. Tam, I think it was, people took my comments out of context. I put out a video, 3 separate emails on the subject. I think my comments were clear. They were obviously phrased in language that's political. I mean, I wasn't giving a dissertation on the subject.
I mean, it's politics.
That's right. I mean, it's in a leadership race. So the language was charged. It was designed to appeal to our base, but it certainly wasn't designed to be racist or anything like that. And again, the point of the communication was to draw the connection, to let people know that the WHO is compromised, which everyone's talking about now. When I first sent out that message, it was less common, but basically that the WHO is compromised, that China has inordinate influence on the WHO, and Theresa Tam, has an influential position in the WHO, and that she had followed their advice every step of the way. Of course, my comments had nothing to do with Theresa Tam's background. Whoever the public health officer was, I would have made the same comments if they did the same things. But people make accusations quickly, and that's the type of world that we live in, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. When people say that, you're a racist or you're homophobe, the thing is, you're a Christian. People don't seem to understand that being a Christian means being a loving person. And from what I know that you are not racist and you're not homophobic and you're not bigoted because of your Christian faith. Following Justin Trudeau's gun ban, you said that you would reverse it if you were elected. But you've also said that you support repealing many firearms regulations, including bills C-71, C-42, C-68, C-17, and C-51. Aren't you concerned that repealing all of these legislations could lead to guns being accessible for dangerous people?
Well, guns are already accessible for dangerous people, and we know that because dangerous people are often using them to kill other people. And
Mm,
many times the guns that they're using are illegal. So
mm,
to crack
very true.
down more on, law-abiding gun owners does not in any way guarantee that we will reduce the number of shootings. I would add, just based on the comment or the question, um, I'm not saying that there should be no laws about gun ownership or gun use. I'm simply saying we need to do a review of existing legislation and put something in place that makes sense and something that actually protects the rights of legal firearm owners to own property and use it, and and protect citizens. So Bill C-71 needs to go, and the rest of the sort of legislation, the legislative framework needs to be examined and potentially changed.
Mm, yeah, you make a good point there. Most of our mass shootings have been used by illegal guns. So, I mean, to me, banning assault weapons would be more of a like philosophical or moral issue, but it's not going to do anything to solve crime. So, on the youth webinar that I hosted, you said that you supported creating a federal youth wing. However, youth wings also tend to mostly be for wealthier youth and usually have high levels of infighting. A federal youth wing would also be expensive and would create another layer of bureaucracy. So, have you looked into the possible downsides of a federal youth wing?
Yeah, so my preference would be that youth would actually get involved in the party itself. So people are allowed to be members of the party as young as 14,
That's
and
when I joined.
that's great. Yeah, that's really good. So I would prefer that a 14-year-old that wants to get involved in the party would become a board member on his local EDA, would take a position in his local EDA, would volunteer and work with his local candidate. So, I should say his or her. I know a variety of people well under 18, both men and women, girls and boys, who are Conservative Party members. So I don't know if a youth wing is necessary. I think youth can join in the party as it is. I meant to say in that webinar, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, if there's a bunch of youth that want to do a youth wing, it's not like I'm super against it. But
Mm,
I think there's enough room for them. I mean, they can be delegates, they can be EDA members, they can. I mean, as soon as they can even run to be nomination candidates.
yeah.
So there's nothing preventing them from doing any of those things. In the party itself. And it's going to give them more experience, I feel, than just being in the youth wing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've said that as Prime Minister, you would pull out of the Paris Accord. However, climate change is a serious issue for young Canadians, including many young Conservatives. And many young Canadians would not vote for someone who's not serious about climate change. So, how will you convince young and old Canadians that you will take the threat of climate change seriously when you want to leave the Paris Accord?
Well, I think that what we need to do on the climate file, or the environmental file, as I prefer to call it, we need to have a serious plan when it comes to making the environment better. But it needs to be anti-alarmist. And the issue that we had in the last election is that we didn't differentiate ourselves from the Liberals. We basically just said, "Oh yeah, we have a plan. It's pretty good. You should check it out." But we didn't differentiate ourselves and say, "Well, look, if you want an alarmist plan, then you might as well not vote for us. But if you want a plan that actually impacts the environment in real, tangible ways, then here's a good plan for you." And so there's many things that we can do to put into a plan with conservationist ideas that actually make for cleaner air, water, and soil. The Liberals were, of course, promoting their carbon tax, but at the same time, their Minister of the Environment was signing off on millions of liters of raw sewage being dumped into the St. Lawrence. So I think if we have a credible and realistic environmental plan that addresses, wastewater pollution, plastic pollution, all of these types of things, along with air pollution as well. But if we have a plan that has some practical things in there that will actually impact the environment, I think people hopefully will be able to see the difference and will support us.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, my parents are both scientists, and I believe in climate change, but I think alarmism just makes everything seem ridiculous, and it really does not help the case. And also what I thought during the election went to carbon tax, that the Conservatives, I don't think their message was not good, because the Liberals found a clever way to combat the argument of it's going to cost people more. But with their new way, there's basically no more incentive to a carbon tax, because a carbon tax lowers emissions when you make everything more expensive, because people will then spend less. But if they get rebated, there's no incentive to do that. I think that conservatives should have said that and said that's not a real policy. We have one. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of holes in their arguments. I mean, for one, they weren't really giving people back the same amount of money they were taking. But for two, you're right. If they were, then the incentive is gone. So, it didn't make sense on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to ask you, if Peter MacKay wins the leadership race and decides to lead the party like Patrick Brown did, by whipping votes on conscience issues, influencing nominations to keep social conservatives out, or by supporting leftist policies, will you stand up for what you believe in, or will you do what the SoCons in Ontario did and just go with the flow?
Yeah. So when it comes to values issues, like life issues and things like that, I would never allow myself to be whipped on that. When it comes to other issues that are arguably less important, what exactly should the tax rate be? Things of that nature. I mean, obviously, I'm more flexible, but no, I think as a caucus we would need to stand up and be very clear on our positions going forward. And I would hope that the next leader would honor the feelings of caucus on those issues.
Yes. So, before we close off, do you have anything to say to the audience in regards to the hard times caused by the pandemic?
Yeah, so I want to thank your listeners for listening today, and obviously we've had very interesting last couple of months, and I think maybe on another show we could talk about some of the mistakes and missteps that the Trudeau government took in dealing with this. And I believe that had we reacted appropriately, we would have never had to do a complete shutdown. I believe we could have, we would have maybe recommended wearing masks. We would have had, specific things for elderly or immunocompromised, but I don't believe we would have had to do a complete shutdown if we would have, followed different advice earlier on. But for those who have been impacted by this, obviously my heartfelt, concerns and prayers go out to you, and I hope that we see better times shortly.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, back when taking it seriously, I mean, I'll even admit myself, most of us did undermine the virus. That's because of the false data that China gave us. When you look at, 70,000 people out of 1 billion, it seems like a little bug, but like when it actually came here to the West, we realized it was, something else, something much more serious. So let's end with this interview with a very simple question. Why should people vote for you?
Well, listen, if you want someone who is a no compromise, no nonsense conservative leader who is not going to be apologizing to the press all the time or forcing other conservative MPs to apologize and is willing to stand on conservative principles, I'm the leader for you. And I think, I literally was staring down the barrel of a gun in terms of my very own career these past couple of weeks. And people see how I responded. I mean, there was a lot of pressure being exercised against me to retract. And people see how I responded to that. And that's the type of thing I would do as leader of the party as well.
Yeah, and I really want to thank you for doing this. You know, Derek, you have been one of the most sincere, honest, and committed candidates that I've seen in politics. And, you know, you are not backing down from your views. And that's something that's nice to see. And that's something we don't see in some of the other candidates in this race. So for that, I really, you know, hope that people see that in people like you or Dr. Lewis. And I've been doing everything I can to get people signed up to support the two of you. And I really look forward to seeing how this election plays out. So thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking this time, and I wish you the best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you so much, Eli, and God bless you and your listeners.
If you'd like to join the Conservative Party in order to vote for Derek Sloan, you have until Friday to do so. Visit the link in the description. I hope that you enjoyed this interview, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, because we have more great interviews and videos coming. Thank you, and God bless you.